The Kinvara 14 is a bit like an aero for your feet. Let's get into it. And it would be an aero because it's light and delicious. But that already makes me sound a little biased towards this shoe. So let's talk about the price. The price is only $120 and you can pick up a pair of Roadrunner Sports. But when was the last time you were able to pick up a pair of new shoes for $120? The price is definitely right. Now, Saucony was onto a winner with the Kinvara for years. In fact, before I think plated shoes really came into the mainstream, the Saucony Kinvara was one of their most popular race day shoes just because it was light, it was firm, it was agile. You were able to put on the Kinvara and just go. Then it seemed like runners' tastes kind of changed. And with that change in taste came the taste for plated shoes. I don't think we wanted a firm feeling shoe as much as we used to in the past. And so people kind of got away from the Kinvara. And I think with version 14, Saucony has listened to the people. They are giving the people what they want, while still, I think, remaining true to the Kinvara legacy. Of course, if you have run in the Kinvara for many years, you are going to disagree with me because this is a big departure. But seeing as this is the first Kinvara that I've actually run in, I can make that kind of uninformed claim. So Saucony is still keeping with the same drop. However, with the version 14, they have added an additional 3mm of stack height to the midsole. We now have 31mm in the heel, 27mm in the forefoot for the normal Kinvara 4mm drop. Now, generally, I do prefer a little higher of a drop. I've run in some shoes that have a 4mm drop and they just don't agree with me. Sometimes my calves get a little tight, and I guess I could say that a 4mm drop shoe seems like it's more likely to leave me feeling beat up when I come back from the run. Didn't have that feeling in the Kinvara 14. But before I get into telling you about the materials, how everything works, what it feels like on the run, I want to tell you what this shoe is actually made for. And I think that the Kinvara is a more wide-ranging shoe than it used to be with this update. Now, the Kinvara is still a super wispy light shoe, hence me likening it to an aero chocolate bar. And in a US men's size 9, it tips the scale at around 7 ounces, which is around 200 grams. But in my size, a US men's size 13, it tips the scale at 8.3 ounces or 236 grams. That is incredibly light for a shoe of my size. In fact, as I sit here holding this shoe, I just want to throw it around because it is just so remarkably light. It's also very flexible. Look at this, I can twist it around like a pretzel. And I think that is what makes this shoe different from most of the other shoes out there now. Definitely shoes with plates that you don't have this level of flexibility. Oh, and by the way, Saucony has been able to cut the weight of version 14 while still increasing that stack height. I think it dropped about 6 grams compared with version 13. But let's start at the top, we'll work our way down, then I'll talk about the ride. Let's start off with the heel collar. You can see, listen, to me, this is just remarkably Saucony. It just looks like Saucony. And I say that when I talk about the thickness. Saucony seems to be able to give you enough padding in your heel collar without overdoing it. You know how some daily trainers, it's just like, oh, I don't know, it's thick like you're putting on a pair of Uggs. But Saucony shoes really don't have that problem. Even in their daily trainers, they manage to keep the heel collar quite thin while still keeping it very comfortable. The heel counter, well, on this pair, on this citron colored pair, you can actually see the heel counter, this piece of plastic in the back. Right here, it kind of comes diagonally down, and that gives a nice little rigid heel counter, ends about here, but I didn't have any heel slip in this shoe. It gave me a nice lockdown, exactly what I would expect compared with other Saucony running shoes. Got this heel tab on the back, and it's nice and elasticated, and that is just surprisingly satisfying to just pull that elastic. I don't know how long that would actually last if I pulled that to get this shoe onto my foot, but it's fun just to sit here and do that. You're also going to notice on the outside of the heel collar, we've got this kind of faux suede that wraps around all the way around both sides. You can see there's these holes kind of punched in it just to give it a little more ventilation. But the ventilation in this faux suede is nothing. It's not even worth talking about because the upper is just so ventilated. It's a very wide weave, and through the weaves, through the holes, you're going to see little silver filaments. Hold on, I brought something else for show and tell. It is very reminiscent of the Endo Pro 3. You see how it's kind of got that shiny look right here? That's because it's got these small little kind of filaments that run underneath the mesh. The same is true with the Kinvara 14, except underneath this mesh is another very thin piece of mesh. I imagine just to give it a little more structure because it isn't a racing shoe. We don't have to consider weight as much as we do in a racing shoe, but even so, I think this is a little lighter than the Pro 3. And because you are probably going to be wearing the Kinvara 14 a little more often than you wear wear your Endorphin Pro 3, that extra layer, it's a very thin layer of mesh underneath the upper mesh, is just going to give it a little more resiliency so you don't end up with holes in your shoe. As far as overlays go, well, this is more of an underlay right around the toe box, and that's just to give it a little structure so the upper stays off your foot. We've got this suede bit just around the heel collar, and then we've got a little bit of more faux suede right on the heel counter. There are no overlays on the eyelet chain. We have little loops, kind of similar to Flywire in another brand, but they seem to work pretty well, and I got a really good lockdown across the top of my foot in the Kinvara 14. Let's come down to the midsole. Midsole is Power Run midsole, and Saucony has paired this Power Run midsole with a Power Run Plus in the sock liner. You see that? You can see that kind of beaded look to the Power Run Plus. That just gives a nice soft addition to the slightly firmer Power Run foam. And before we talk about performance, I just want to say that you can see these speckles right here on the top of the midsole. I like the way that looks. That just looks really sharp to me. And then we come down to the outsole, and there is something just glaringly missing from this outsole, isn't there? Oh, it's the rubber. Now, Saucony has strategically placed a little bit of outsole rubber right here on the lateral edge and then right here on the medial toe section, clearly placed for most of us runners that will land on the lateral outside heel and then roll through and then toe off. And they have left the rest of the shoe, not so much here, not so much here, but right around here. Totally open and free of outsole rubber. And while that is clearly going to play a part in how long this shoe is going to last you, it actually makes for a very pleasant ride. It makes for a soft landing, and it makes for a quiet landing. This is a silent pair of shoes. If you were gonna rob a bank and you had to creep around in the night, I would probably choose this pair because it's so quiet. Probably stay away from the citron yellow colorway. That stands out a little bit more than you like. But as far as creeping around in the dark at night when you don't want to be heard, the Kinvara 14 is going to work for that too. Oh, before we talk about ride, let's just talk about the tongue. Look at this tongue. Can you see this here? It's quite thin. Again, it's quite ventilated, quite aero. I think this shoe is going to work very well for me living in Florida in the summertime when it gets super hot. Obviously, I'm going to soak this shoe through, but there's really no material to hold on to all that liquid, so it's going to dry quickly. It's not going to gain a lot of weight through sweat. On the other side, if you live in a cold climate, I don't know if I'd want to take this shoe out on like a snowy day. Not going to provide your feet much warmth. The tongue is the same kind of mesh material as the upper. It doesn't have those little filaments running through, and the tongue is fully gusseted on both sides. There is no lace loop, and just looking at it, it seems like, I don't know, it seems like there's just a little bit too much material in the tongue. Like when I pull it up like this, it seems like they could take, I don't know, I'm not a designer, but it seems like you could just remove just a little bit from the gussets so the tongue is just a little firmer, maybe held down just a little bit like that. Now, honestly, I didn't experience any tongue slippage when I put my foot in and I locked down the laces. The tongue didn't slip around to the side. It's only when I'm holding the shoe in my hand and I'm looking at it, this tongue seems to be flapping around, I don't know, just a little bit more than I would expect. Also, a lace loop would probably fix that problem too, just to keep that tongue centered. Now, the ride is what I really enjoyed about the Kinvara 14, because gotta say, I did expect a little firmer ride. From what I've heard about the Kinvara over the years, I was expecting more like a firm race day shoe. I was not expecting something so soft, so agreeable, and of course the 4mm drop, because I tend to favor higher drops, maybe in the 8 to 10mm range. I was expecting the testing process of the Kinvara 14 to be a bit of a challenge. You know, I was expecting to have some achy calves. I don't really get Achilles issues from the lower drop shoes, but definitely I do feel it in my calves. And look, I haven't felt anything in my calves. This shoe, it really is a treat to run in, and I think maybe that is because of the stack height, the foam softness to firmness ratio. So on that spectrum, it's smack in the middle. It's just right. It's not too soft where I feel like it's a daily trainer and I just want to go out and run easy, and it's not too firm where I feel like I'm feeling all that road vibration and impact coming up through the shoe, and the shoe only feels good when you're running fast because that foam is so firm. It's like right in the middle. And I know this shoe is light. I know it's flexible. I know the shoe is made for speed workouts and race day. If you don't want a plated shoe, you want something a little more original. But guys, I've got to tell you, this shoe actually works well as a daily trainer. So when I go out and I run sort of easy, the Kinvara 14 actually works incredibly well for me. So I've taken this shoe across a lot of different runs, and that I enjoyed how it rode on the speed work was really not surprising. That is the wheelhouse of this shoe. That's what I expected it to be good at. But what was surprising was it felt really good when I was running slow. And that has to come down to the increased stack height of the midsole. There's enough cushioning here to actually feel good when you're out for an easy jog. And yet the shoe is light enough to pick up the pace and just disappear on your foot when you're running fast. Something that you need to keep in mind is that this is a more traditional shoe. There's no posting, there's no guidance, it is a neutral shoe, it is very flexible, there's no plate inside, so there's going to be no speed assist. So if you are used to running in a plated shoe, if you're used to that assistance to kind of move you forward, it might be a bit of a surprise that you're putting in a little extra effort to run in the Kinvara 14. Guys, I think for most of us, for some of us at least, it's time to get back to basics. Run in a shoe that just feels good without all the extra bells and whistles that go into it. And that is where the Kinvara 14 really excels, in my opinion. The only downside that I can think about with the Kinvara 14 is this lack of outsole rubber, and that just within time, I think this shoe is going to wear down a little quicker than the average running shoe that does have that extra protection on the bottom. In fact, let me just hold this up to you right now. I think you can probably see. See, I'm getting a little bit of wear on this outsole already. I mean, it's not crazy bad. Yeah, I don't know. But listen, in today's day and age, when all these companies are coming out with new running shoes all the time, maybe the Kinvara 14 is kind of a blessing in disguise, because if you wear down this outsole by using this shoe so much, seems like a good excuse to go out and buy another new pair of running shoes. So guys, what do you think? Have you run in any of the previous iterations of the Kinvara? Are you thinking about getting the Kinvara 14? Of course, I'll put a link in the show notes, so if you want to pick up a pair, you can. And just so you know, when you use my links in the show notes, it's not going to cost you anything more. It does just help support the channel. And if you have made it this far, why don't you put the feather emoji in the comments, just so I know that you've made it all the way to the end. And obviously the feather is because the Kinvara 14 is a feather light shoe. My name's Matt. This has been my review of the Saucony Kinvara 14. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.